This show is brought to you in part by viewers like you who joined a Patreon or become YouTube members. Thank you. And if you could, hit the like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content.
Monday was an interesting day. It was a very interesting day. Because, see, this weekend set off the keg of the argument that people are going to have all summer about how the Browns should go about solving their quarterback issue. See, on Saturday, one of the top prospects in the upcoming draft, Fernando Mendoza, played Ohio State. Now, if you haven't been paying attention to college football, I need you to understand Ohio State had been looking a special kind of dominant throughout this year. They had not played a close game, I think, since the Texas game, maybe. I think that's the last close game that they played in at the beginning of the season. I think that was the first week of the season. And even that game was close, but it wasn't in danger for Ohio State. The last game where Ohio State truly felt like they could lose, maybe you could argue Texas in the college football playoff, but it was Michigan last year when they beat them. Ohio State been playing some dominant football this year. Everybody expected Ohio State just to roll through the Big Ten championship, even though Indiana was the number 2 team in the country. But again, Fernando Mendoza, Heisman candidate, one of the top prospects in this year's draft class, goes up against Ohio State, doesn't put up great numbers, but in have-to-have-it moments, made some amazing throws and beat Ohio State at Indiana. And I know some people are trying to discount that whole part. But if you beat Ohio State at Indiana of all places, I got nothing but respect for that, right? Like you look at the schools that have been able to beat Ohio State over the last 10 years. I think maybe Purdue sneaks in there one time. But like it's not usually schools like Indiana. But nonetheless, especially in the Big Ten championship game, you know, you got to be a big time player to show up in that kind of a moment with that kind of talent on the field. So a lot of people left Saturday thinking to themselves, oh, I might be more open to drafting a quarterback. You know, they saw Mendoza. Maybe they're already fans of Dante Moore. You know, they're putting it together, right? And then Sunday, an interesting combination of things happened. See, on one hand, Shedeur Sanders by far played his best game as a pro. If you want to look into that and how much he developed and how much he's grown over the last couple of weeks, go watch my film breakdown. It was very complimentary of Shedeur. He played his best game as a pro on Sunday. On the other hand, the Browns lost this game to the Tennessee Titans, which put the Browns in a position to potentially get the number 1 overall pick. So a perfect powder keg was set, matched, and lit on fire for Monday morning. And all Monday morning, I saw people arguing whether it is that they want to draft the quarterback, whether it is that Shedeur's the answer and we should just go with Shedeur and put everything behind Shedeur. And I found myself watching these arguments and wanting to step beyond that, right? Whether your team Shedeur, whether your team draft the quarterback, I want to step beyond that simple prompt because I think that prompt is very limiting in this conversation and honestly kind of reductive if you're a Browns fan. See, if you're a Browns fan and you think Shedeur's the answer to fix the franchise, or if you're a Browns fan and you think the draft is an answer to fix the franchise, you're really ignoring the big thing that you have in common with everybody in this conversation that cares about the Browns, which is we all want the Browns to fix their quarterback problem. And we seem to think that there are 2 viable lanes to fix the quarterback problem. Now, you can spend your energy debating with fellow Browns fans about which avenue to fix the quarterback problem you think is better. Or you could take a step back from arguing on Twitter and ask yourself this question. If the Browns have 2 legitimate ways to potentially solve their quarterback problem that you feel good about, is that a bad thing? I don't think it is. See, there was a commercial that used to come on a ton when I was a kid. You'd be watching Nickelodeon, this commercial would come on. And it is like a family arguing. One part of the family wants soft shell tacos. The other one wants hard shell tacos. And I want hard shell, you want soft shell, right? And they're yelling at each other. And then this one kid pops up and goes,
¿Por qué no los dos?
we all want tacos. Why not get both? Why not just get both shells? That's how I felt. You know, that's how I felt watching these arguments. Why not both? Now, I'll tell you what I mean by that specifically in just a second, but let me thank my sponsor, Sleeper. Real quick, just want to let you guys know Sleeper has a new offer here. They're offering a free $20 entry, no deposit required. And also, if you're a first-time user, you also will receive a 100% match on up to $100 when you use the promo code Worst Take. Again, $20 free, no deposit required. Plus, first-time users also receive a 100% deposit match up to $100. Join Sleeper. See, when I say why not both, you might be assuming, oh, you want the Browns to draft the quarterback and keep Shedeur. And I think that's certainly an option. You know, the idea that you have to get rid of Shedeur just because you draft the quarterback, I think is a misnomer, right? Like, I don't think you have to get rid of Shedeur if you draft the quarterback. You could, and maybe get back a fourth or a third for him. But you don't have to get rid of Shedeur, right? I mean, the ideal of like you just because you drafted the quarterback in 1 year, you can't keep the quarterback and then draft somebody else. I mean, look at what the draft that the Browns brought Shedeur in, right? They drafted Dylan Gabriel, they bring in Shedeur. It worked out for them, right? So the idea that you can't draft the quarterback and have Shedeur back there, I don't think I think that's a misnomer. I think you can keep Shedeur on the team. Will there be noise from the outside world? Sure. Will there be criticism from the national media? Sure. But ask yourself this question. What is it that the Browns could do to avoid that in any situation in handling this at all? Like, seriously, if the Browns decide we're going to go all in on Mendoza or more and they trade Shedeur, you know what's going to happen? They're going to be criticized for trading Shedeur. They're going to be scrutinized, and the Shedeur and whatever quarterback they draft are going to be compared for their rest of their careers. But that's going to happen, right? The same thing you're trying to avoid by trading Shedeur is just going to happen anyways. So what's the point of trading him, right? If you keep Shedeur on the team, people are going to criticize you. If you trade Shedeur, people are going to criticize you. It's a catch-22. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. You might as well keep them both. Now, I know some people might say, well, it's going to be hard to develop a quarterback like that. I don't think so. I think most of the stuff that would happen is more outside noise. Shedeur has proven himself to be mature enough to handle that kind of a situation. And I would imagine you don't draft somebody in the top 5 if you're not convinced that they're mature enough to handle that situation. So what's really the problem? Are we not doing something because we don't want to see the arguments on Twitter? Is that a way to run your team? So again, this idea that you can't have both of them on the same team and have Shedeur be the bridge while you wait for the rookie to be ready. You know, maybe you give the rookie a red shirt year because you think there's something they need to fix or something like that. And then you move on to the rookie, or maybe you just give Shedeur an extended try. There's a lot of ways it could work out that involve the Browns having both on the team. But that's not necessarily what I mean by why not both. What I mean is, why not embrace the fact that we are in a win-win situation? It's not very often we are in, but I think the Browns truly do find themselves in a win-win situation right here. See, on one end of the spectrum, the Browns could lose out. And if the Browns lose out, very high chance they get the number 2 pick in the draft at the very least. There's still a chance they get the number 1 overall pick. But very high chance that they lose out, they at least get the number 2 overall pick. At the worst, they're getting the number 3 overall pick. And if you lose out, maybe you like the quarterback class more than you like Shedeur. You take a quarterback and you figure it out with Shedeur as you go on, and you keep whoever's better, and you try to fix your quarterback problem that way. This quarterback class has 2 quarterbacks I feel really good about. 2 quarterbacks that I can compare to recent Pro Bowlers, right? Recent MVP candidates. Dante Moore reminds me a lot of CJ Stroud. And when you look at Fernando Mendoza, I see a lot of Matt Ryan in his game, a former MVP in Matt Ryan. So it's not crazy to think that drafting a quarterback could solve your quarterback problem. On the other end, we have Shedeur Sanders finishing out the season with the Cleveland Browns. And if Shedeur plays well enough that the Browns are able to win a couple of games here and the Browns aren't in position to draft a quarterback, then, well, guess what? I feel great about going into 2026 with Shedeur Sanders and giving him a shot to be the guy. See, it's a win-win situation here. The Browns have, for the first time, we're looking for a quarterback, an actual safety net here in Shedeur. Will we know by the end of the season for a fact if Shedeur Sanders is good enough to be a franchise quarterback? No, it's almost impossible to tell in 7 games what somebody's career is going to look like. But we've seen enough to know that giving him a chance long term wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. The Browns have certainly given worse quarterbacks longer shots than him. I mean, like if we could give Deshaun Kaiser 14 games because the situation was right for Deshaun Kaiser to get 14 games, we give Shedeur 14 games. It's not really that big of a deal. I felt worse about guys that you would give an extended run to. So I think this is an absolute win either way. Like I woke up today, once I stepped out of this very limited way of looking at it, where it's like, no, my guy's going to fix the quarterback situation, or my guy's going to fix the quarterback situation. And you're arguing about which approach you think is going to be better. I think the Browns are in the perfect situation to just simply let this play out. Let it play out. Let's see what happens, right? Shedeur has 4 tough games ahead of him. If he wins 2 of those games, you're not going to be able to take a quarterback anyways, but you've seen enough with Shedeur where you can be like, all right, we'll just roll with Shedeur. The way I see the draft, like if we're envisioning the Browns quarterback situation as a draft board, it's pretty simple. 1, 2, Dante Moore, Mendoza, however you'll put them, right? If you think that one of those guys could be a MVP candidate, a quarterback, you take him, But number 3 is Shedeur. Like that's your backup plan. And I feel pretty good about that as a backup plan. So what's there to really argue about? I think both these situations are fine. I know there's going to be some cynics that go, well, the Browns will find a way to mess this up, right? But I have to imagine one day the Browns aren't going to mess it up and actually get better at football. And I wonder what people who kind of live off of the Browns messing it up will do when that day happens. But, right now, if we're just looking at this, you have a guy on your roster that you feel good about if you can't draft the quarterback that you want. And then you have 2 guys coming out the draft that you feel really good about if you have the selection to go take them. Remember at the beginning of the season where people asked me, what did I hope to see out of this rookie class when it comes to the quarterback position? I got this question all summer. What do you want to see? What do you think would be a win for this season? And my answer has always been simple. If the Browns can get out of this season and not be desperate to find their starter for next year, for whatever reason, that's a win. We're in that scenario. The season's going to end. If the Browns have to pick to get a quarterback, we're not going to feel desperate. If the Browns don't have a pick to get a quarterback, we're not going to feel desperate. We're too busy arguing over which way we want to do it, because people have gotten caught up in the argument with Shador's fan base and Browns fans and all of this stuff for so long that people kind of have forgotten why they're arguing in the first place, right? People have gotten so dug in on this is going to happen or that's going to happen that we can't take the step back and realize, holy shit, this is where we want it to be. I wanted to end the season and not be desperate about what the Browns have to do. And when I say desperate, I mean do shit like draft Drew Aller in like the first round or like Cade Klubnik in like the second. The Browns are not going to have to do any of that. At the very least, if they don't have the picks to get a quarterback, they'll run it back with Shador and they'll be fine. They don't have to do something stupid like give a run to Deshaun Watson. They're not going to have to trade Kenny Pickett back and try to play Kenny Pickett again. They can simply just give Shador a run next year. If they don't have any better they don't have to trade for Kyler Murray. They don't have to trade for Geno Smith. They don't have to trade for Kirk Cousins. Like we're beyond those conversations now. Shador has certainly played well enough to where you would rather see what he has than trade for an over-the-hill veteran. I don't have to hear about the Mac Jones trade that people were trying to float out during the season. We could just keep Shador and see what he has. If you don't have to pick to go get one of the top two guys in this draft class. And isn't that where we want it to be? Isn't that exactly what we had hoped for? Why are we at this point where we're getting exactly what we want from our quarterback options and somehow we're upset about it? It makes you wonder, like, hey, have you spent too much time arguing with people online? Because I certainly thought about that, because I've spent my fair share arguing with people online, getting into it with Shador fans or Dylan fans or whatever fan base it is mad at me this week. But if you really take a step back from all that bullshit and you really think about it, the Browns have somebody on their roster you feel good about giving an extra chance to. The Browns have two guys in the draft, if it comes down to it, that they can draft, and you feel good about those picks. It's where you want to be. Browns are actually in a perfect position to attack the quarterback position this offseason. It's not words I've ever uttered. Okay? I think we should be happier about this. Right? We don't have to sit here and pray that the team loses every Sunday. If Shador wins some games and you're not in position, it's not the worst thing in the world to give Shador a try next year. Look at what he's put on tape. It's fine. I'm 100% okay with it. But if you don't win the games and the ball doesn't bounce your way, well, then you have another opportunity on hand to you. You could draft the quarterback. You could be so enamored with what Shador's done that you could decide to trade back and get a haul for one of these guys. You better be 100% correct about what you're going to do with Shador if you do that. But you have that opportunity on hand. I see this as a complete win. Let me know what you guys think. You know, have you been able to step away from these arguments enough to kind of realize that the Browns are actually in a good spot right now as far as quarterback goes? Let me know in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have a better night. Peace.